Hi, Dave. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine as well. And like I said earlier, thank you for coming, for honoring the invite. It means a whole lot, man.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave. Yeah, okay, Dave. I am so excited to have you on the show for a couple of reasons. Firstly, my interest in seeking knowledge, because I believe to move from chaos to transformation, it takes the application of insight. So for that reason, I am excited to have you on the show. And secondly, my audience, I believe there are some things that okay, that some of my audience needs to hear this stuff directly from your mouth in order to experience transformation. I firmly believe that. And thirdly, that is I myself. I know for surety that I will definitely learn one or two things from your story, your experiences, and your insight. So for that reason, Dave, I want us to get started with your introduction. How the journey has been so far, the challenges that you faced, and how you overcame them. And afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Dave, over to you.
Okay, thank you. My story is, well, I don't want it to be sad, but I was, happy and successful, and then lost it all because of my undiagnosed mental illness, bipolar disorder. And so I ended up homeless for a couple years with the family, and then for 14 years were pretty much my lost years and dark days. I could barely get out of bed. It was everything I could do just to make it to the couch to sit all day. I couldn't talk to people if the phone rang or there was a knock on the door. I'd have a panic attack. It was just awful. And then over time, but I didn't they say grief acceptance is the final stage, the fifth stage of grief. And I never really accepted my place, my place of not being able to function. I was more pissed off than I was accepting of it, and so I kept trying. And after the 14 years, I started to recover slowly. Um, I got a minimum wage part-time job, 12-hour week job at a department store here in town, and I was able to show up to work and do that consistently, and that was a huge success for me. Just riding the bus and getting there, and then being there for 12 hours a week was a huge success, and that was kind of the beginning of my recovery, and so there were some steps along the way, but that's kind of the short story. My um, from sadness and grief and loss to where I am now. I teach stand-up comedy to folks with a mental illness. I found healing with humor, and so I have my own. I perform and tell my story one joke at a time, and what I've learned and my lesson and maybe my understanding to share is that my purpose and what really makes a difference is making a difference in other people's lives, just like you are. And by getting out of my head and getting out of myself and being present for other people, that helped me recover and got me to the place where I am now.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's a very, very inspiring story. And you mentioned a particular keyword, very important. You said you kept on trying. I love that. You kept on trying. And you also said before you stopped talking that your purpose is to make a difference in other people's life. That's amazing. I love that. And that's very encouraging. I really love that. Okay, Dave. Shall we get started with the questions?
Sure.
All right. Okay. how can one overcome imposter syndrome? Can you talk to us about it?
Wow. Yeah. I did a lot of pretending. I pretended to be okay. Um, I was an imposter for a long time. I'd see somebody uh, and I knew or whatever, and I'd pretend like I was okay, and I didn't want anybody to know what was happening. When I was first diagnosed with my mental illness, I told people, and they pretty much disappeared from my life. The stigma was very real, and I didn't expect that from people that I was close to, but that's what happened. So after that, I didn't tell people, and I just pretended to be okay. To get past that, I talked about acceptance and not giving up. I think what I did accept was that I had a mental health challenge. What I didn't accept was that I was stuck in that spot and that I wouldn't recover. And so finally getting out of the imposter syndrome was again getting out of my head and being able to talk about my mental illness and not be afraid of what other people thought. And so I was really able to be my true self. But it took a long time to get to that place.
Gotcha. I got that. Okay. We still have some questions here. So
Okay.
you mentioned stigma. So how can one shatter stigma with stories and humor? Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. People are oftentimes they're afraid of mental illness. They're um, it's uncomfortable, and people don't understand it. I mean, people with a mental illness, some have challenges and are maybe hurt other people or whatever about that. But most people, I mean, the vast majority of people with a mental health challenge are just regular folks. They're your brother, your sister, your coworker, your friends, and so part of it is making other people feel comfortable, and that's uh, when I learned humor. I took a comedy class, and I learned to find humor in my dark days and my hard times and my worst experiences. And by being able to share my story with some humor, it humanized me and made it so other people weren't afraid. It shattered the stigma. I also blog for bphope.com, which is a mental health um, blog site. And my posts have been read by over 1 million people. And what I did is I told my story 600 words at a time. And it did two things. One is it let other people know they're not alone. And the most common response from people that read my posts was, OMG, that's me. You're telling my story. I don't feel so alone now. But it also was healing for me. I was able to get these things out, and I was able to write about them, and they weren't so scary anymore. So that made me more comfortable around other people. But I think just being a regular person, and I don't lead with I have a mental illness. Some people, that's what's going on in their lives, and they overshare, and that's all they talk about, and people can't wait to escape the conversation. So I don't lead with that, but if it comes up, I'm able to relate with the story or with some humor, and it makes a huge difference in the stigma. I'm with a group, I lead a group that performs stand-up comedy in clubs around Portland, with our mental health, and we tell our stories one joke at a time. And by doing that and people seeing that we're real people and we have a sense of humor, that helps shatter the stigma, um, 100 or 200 people at a time.
Mm, amazing. I got that. I got that. Okay. What is the title of your book and what inspired you to pick that particular title for your book?
Yeah, the title is OMG, That's Me. And it's and the subtitle is Bipolar Disorder, Depression, Anxiety, Panic Attacks, and More. I'm one of those people that happen to have all those different pieces of all those different diagnoses, I guess, of mental illness. And what inspired me, to write was finding out that my story made a difference in other people's lives. And so I took my most popular blog posts that have been read, and I think I said over 1 million people, and put them in a book because I wanted to reach more people. You don't make money. I've sold 20,000 copies over time, so it's done well. I haven't promoted it. I can't promote it because I'm terrible at promoting. But if one wants to know what it's truly like to live with a mental illness, then reading OMG, That's Me, uh, you'll know. And if you know someone or a family member with a mental illness, reading the book, you'll truly understand what they're going through. The other book, I wrote a second book. It's called OMG, That's Me 3, and it's Healing with Humor, and it's about learning stand-up comedy and the transformation that happened with me by finding humor in my experiences. And then teaching the class and seeing the transformation with other people who found humor in their darkest days. One gal was suicidal when she took the class. Her mom was really worried about her, and she took the class. She was actually a doctor, and then she had to give it up because of her mental illness. And so she felt lost and worthless, actually. And by finding humor in her story, instead of being a failed doctor or losing everything, she became a comic, and that's her identity now, and that's how she describes herself. So and her mom said, without the comedy class, she would have lost her. Um, so that's the power of finding humor in our most difficult times, and it's to find that humor. You go back to those darkest days and the hardest times, and then you look for the humor. Uh, Makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. So OMG, That's Me is, from the comments that people reading the blog posts and then putting that in a book. And then OMG, That's Me 3 is from the comedy classes that I teach. And the story of 6 people and the transformation that finding humor in their stories, and their experiences, and what a difference it made in their lives.
Mm,
And both of them are on audiobook, and especially OMG, That's Me 3 is a great listen on audiobook because we're able to cut out to parts of the live performances of the folks,
mm,
and you get to hear them telling jokes about everything that people don't talk about.
mm. That's deep. That's beautiful. Getting to find humor. That particular woman that you mentioned that she's a doctor. That's a great one. That's a great one. I love that. Okay, so the sixth chapter of OMG3, can you talk to us about the story of, is it Molly or Molly?
It is Molly, yeah, and
Molly, yeah.
she was the doctor, and um, again, she lost everything and was suicidal. And she, um, she had manic depressive bipolar disorder. And so one of her jokes that she tells is, little did she know going through medical school that the MD after her name was actually going to stand for manic depressive. So she's Molly McDabb, MD, and the MD instead of medical doctor is for manic depression. She also talks. She's got lots of really good jokes. She's really talented, and she performs around in clubs around town. She gets paid for it. She's a professional comic. She does some traveling, and she's a comic that how she sees herself, and she is constantly finding humor in experiences, whether it be suicidal ideation or loss or just grocery shopping and the anxiety and dread. She finds humor in it all the time, and um, so she doesn't live with that dread and that anxiety anymore. When she feels it, when she starts going back to those dark days, she tries to find some humor in it, and it's really made a difference in her life. And like I said, her mom said, "Well, I know, I don't want to." Um, you talk. Some people say, somebody was suicidal and now she's not. But this was actually a case where she was suicidal, thinking about it, planning it, all the stages of it, and came out of it by finding the humor.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love that. Okay, Dave, to bring this to an end, what would you like to leave the audience with? Like a final thought, yeah. And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, get your books, learn more about what you do, how can that be possible?
Yeah, I think first of all, the books are on Amazon and every place that the books are sold. And what do I think I'd like to leave people with a joke, a suicide joke. Suicide isn't ever funny except for us when it is. And I tell this joke, and audiences pause for a minute and then laugh. And the people that laugh most are the people that have lived with mental health challenges and considered suicide and had suicide ideation. So this is a joke. I've got to preface it by saying it's a joke and it's okay to laugh. So this is how I'd like to end it. When things were really bad, I decided to end it all. So I went up into the bathroom and I took a bunch of pills. Afterwards, I called my wife for help. She said there are more pills under the sink. So she was very helpful. I know. So you can, I had suicide ideation. And a part of the joke is true, but obviously my wife didn't tell me there were more pills under the sink. So anyway, I'll leave people with that. Hopefully a smile on their face knowing that
Yeah, man.
and
That's
it's okay to talk about.
beautiful, beautiful. So that's gonna be the end of the show, Dave. Thank you for coming and thank you for, sharing this amazing insight and stories with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. You too. Take care.